Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Coliving Code show. This week is extremely unique because I actually get interviewed on my own show. This was an idea we had with Gui Perdrix, and he is the guy behind Coliving Diaries. He's actually doing a global co-living tour right now and publishing his book, The Art of Co-Living, that's going to come out at the end of this year, which I personally am super excited about because the Coliving Code is still the only book strictly on co-living listed on Amazon for some odd reason. I'm so excited to get more and more information about co-living out there, pushing the cause even further. The great thing about Guy is that he is just as passionate about the co-living movement, about building community. So it was really, really fun for us to sit down in Hollywood, have this conversation. So you guys enjoy. And please, please, please like or comments. Always appreciate that. It's like the fuel that keeps us going, our team going on this weekly podcast. And always reach out if you guys have a guest in mind that you would love for me to interview on a future episode. Thanks again.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Coliving Code show. Today a bit different, and I'm interviewing Christine McDonald.
Yes, thank you, Guy, for having me on my own show. This is exciting. This will be great. So I get interviewed this time.
You're very welcome, and you have a lot to share. You are an operator, you are a thought leader in the scene, you're also building your own startup in the co-living sector. So I really honor what you're doing, and it's really beautiful seeing like all of the knowledge that you've been accumulating. So I guess for today, it'd be really interesting to tap a bit into that knowledge and share it with the world.
Awesome, I can do that.
And I guess the number one question is like right now, I would love to talk quickly about yourself. You are doing so many different things. You're building out Kindred, you're having the Coliving Code show, you wrote your book. What's kind of your main focus? What's your main drive? Why are you doing this?
No, I know, it's so funny. So everybody says that. So of course, I started Kindred Quarters, which was on the operational side 2 years ago. And then I only wrote a book last summer, a year ago, in 2018, because there wasn't a book yet. So I went on Amazon and I typed in co-living, and there wasn't a book on co-living yet. So I'm like, okay, I guess I need to write one. And then same with the show. I wanted to listen to podcast interviews about co-living, and I would search, and there wasn't any. So, and because of the book, we did interviews, and I was like, wow, let's just put these out as podcasts. We put them all out, and then we've just continued every week ever since. It's been over a year, and have interviewed some amazing people. You were on the show a while back in Bali. That was fun. So yeah. So and then the technology, the software was in. So it's kind of like a domino effect. Everything kind of led to the next thing. When I wrote the book and doing the podcast, I always asked, well, what software are you using to power a co-living operation? And every single person said nothing, and we really need something. And just, it didn't matter how big they were. And it's 180 beds, 600 beds. They were just kind of hacking together software, kind of Frankenstein, different, like 8 different software applications to run their place.
Totally. And you especially since the last 12 months, that's kind of like the time when you published your book last summer. And so you started the show, you talked to so many people. I'm curious, as somebody who's building out this Kindred platform, what were some of the big inspirations that you had in this time of the show? Like with people that you maybe didn't expect it to turn out that well, or spaces that really inspired you?
So many. So especially when I was in Europe for the last 5 months, I got to see some of the most amazing co-living operations that have been around for a while, because student accommodations is really popular in Europe, not as much here in the States. And, I'll say one, the student hotel, Charlie McGregor, he was on the show. It was so much fun. He was such an incredible human being. And we got to do ours in person, which again is rare. Usually it's through the computer and they're miles and miles away. I lived at the student hotel for 3 months. So I got to really experience the concept. I love Zoku in Amsterdam, which is Hans, and I've spoken with him so many times. I mean, I still need to get him on the show. I know I'm going to have to give him a hard time, but just amazing conversations because I was co-working out of Zoku. And just the community they've built is incredible. And then my last one, because you said I could name 3, so is a
It's limited, right?
Yeah, it's limited because I have a lot of favorites and I don't want to leave anybody out. I think Reza Merchant with the Collective was also an incredible interview, and that was one we got tons of feedback on. Because again, people are looking at these larger concepts that are growing so fast, and they're thinking it's like this evil property management company that's greedy or, I don't know. And then when they really listen and see that interview and see like at the core, like he just really believes in this and has for so long, and knows the way that the world is changing, and I think that's a common thread with most of the interviews is like they know this is the way that humans are going to live together, and they're just a little early, so it kind of looking like they're crazy, but they're on the right path.
They are, and Co-Living has been growing. I remember our conversation in Gran Canaria. And at that time you were telling me, that was last April, and you were telling me like, yeah, Co-Living is going to become its own asset class by the end of the year.
Yes, I still think that. I know we're in, what are we, beginning of September right now? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like 3 months.
Yeah.
4 months. Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what are like, since then, what are like some big changes that you are seeing coming in the next like 12 to 24 months in the whole Co-Living scene? What do you think is going to happen?
Oh wow, I can't even think that far out, to be honest. I can actually. So again, asset class, hopefully by the end of this year, maybe beginning of next. And again, every country's different. So some countries, just depending on their financial institutions, some might call it an official asset class. Maybe somewhere in Europe or in London, before we do in the States, I don't know. So I don't know where that will start when it's really made official. Yeah. I think within the next 2 years, you're going to see, somebody kind of pop out of nowhere and start buying up, consolidating, like rolling up the little guys, kind of like the hotel industry did, like Hyatt, Marriott. They came up and started consolidating and really making a consistent product around the world, because that hasn't happened yet at all, and nobody's even close to it yet. But I'm curious to see who's that going to be, what's the product going to be like, because there's so many different versions of co-living. Is it going to be a lower end one, a mid-range, high-end? And then also, last thing is demographics. So, and it's funny, I was just having this conversation over the weekend. You've got 25 to 35-year-olds as the main segment, and we all know that. But what about the baby boomers? And what about the senior citizens? And what about the families? Yeah, and I know Kin, I know Common with Kin, I'm really excited about that product because they're finally tackling families. Yes. So again, it was like they got that sweet spot of 25 to 35 dialed in, and now let's start branching off into different demographics, because they reach out to me. I had a few baby boomers that want to travel the world, and they're like, Christine, but what co-living home can we live in? Because, we don't know if we want to live with we don't even know if they want us to live with, a bunch of millennials. And so it's going to be exciting to see those changes.
Totally. And it's one of the biggest burdens right now for co-living, right? Which is, it's very associated with like young tech, entrepreneurial crowd, which is very marginalizing from all of the people that it could, serve, including like older generations, families. So let's talk about Kindred in a second. I'd love to hear from your perspective. So I was a former co-living operator as well. Right now I'm doing this tour, and I have so many inspirations. You interviewed so many people. Did you apply something from what they taught you to your own space? And how is just Kindred quarters right now? Have you applied any changes, any learnings from that, or is there any inspiration, something that you'd like to try out for your own spaces?
That off the top of my head, there hasn't, because our model is so unique. Because again, we're just strictly entrepreneurs, and everything is all inclusive. It's chef and the laundry, and it's just such a different demographic for us. I know there's a few concepts in San Francisco that are really similar to that, or there's the hacker houses. Yeah. So yeah, again, it's funny. I didn't do this show. I do this show because I love that the listeners and the watchers can be flies on the wall of these conversations I get to have all the time, anyways. But I mostly like to glean these ideas for people getting ready to start their own concept. So people just starting out can kind of pick and choose, like a buffet. Oh my God, I love this idea from Amsterdam, how they're doing it there, but I love this idea in California. How they're doing this or that. That's the cool thing about the show, is finding all that out. Ours was pretty set up before we started this show on how we do things. So sometimes when I visit others, I'll see ideas oh my God, I've never thought of that. That's a great idea. It's so cute. So yeah.
Yeah, and one thing you said is co-living has so many different forms, right?
So many.
You have a cluster of 5 people living together.
Yeah, six. Yeah, there's 6 of us.
And you have those purpose-built, the collective, where it's 300 people living together. So I'd love to dig a bit into Kindred, because you are tackling the industry of co-living. Mm-hmm. And that's a big industry. As you said, it's so many different models. So what is kind of the basic, or within all of those different types of co-living spaces, what are the basic needs that you really see that everybody has and that you're trying to solve? And that whole complexity.
Yeah, so it's funny you say it's a big industry. It's such a niche. It's still niche. It's about, what is it, 1,000 like concepts globally, maybe 1,500. I know that number goes up every day. So when I talk to investors, they're like, that's a tiny market. That's like, so it's funny you say it's a big market. It is, because we're in it every day. We feel like it's massive. And it feels massive because it is so many different versions in different ways. And there's, apartment stays, and there's like furnished, apartments that are kind of saying they're co-living, and there's student housing that's co-living. So it's like everybody's kind of putting that word co-living, and then now we have to decide, what is co-living, right? And everybody always asks both of us, like, what is co-living? What's the definition of co-living? Well, to me, it's community. So you can't just like take a regular 300 bedroom apartment community and just put the word co-living on your website. Like, that's not going to work. You need to build community. You need to have events. You need to be proactive. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'm noticing. Because while you're right, while it's like all these concepts are popping in to the co-living world.
And is that something that you also want to tackle, like the community building aspects, or what is the one thing that you really want to focus on?
I mean, with Kindred, I just genuinely want to use technology. I mean, there's no reason we can't use our smartphones to find a co-living home anywhere in the world, like see who's living there, see bios of people, sign a digital lease, do a 360-degree tour through video. Like, you shouldn't have to go to Madrid, see the co-living home, and then decide. Like, you should be able to do this remotely from anywhere in the world from your smartphone. And that's what Kindred needs to facilitate. It's the directory and the bookings and the reservations and the invoicing and expense tracking. And so everything from the user side to find the home, and then from the operator side to like manage their concept. Because it gets chaotic. The bigger you get, it gets insane, and I have the conversations every day. That's why I can't wait until we get on board everybody. We're a huge waiting list right now, and I'm like, okay, we're almost there. The platform has to be ready for them to come on, and for it to actually make their life easier. Like, that's what we're doing with Kindred. And we're almost there. We're a couple months out. So
tell me about it. What's awaiting us?
It's like, we have like 154 people right now, which is like making me nervous. And we're like 2 months out of the biggest feature that we're putting out. We found that the biggest pain point right now is the payment processing. Gotcha. So this, you've got people paying with Venmo in the States. You've got people paying with PayPal, Venmo, cash, check. ACH debit, yes. Right?
And I had it in my own space, plus sometimes they pay in different currencies. So
different currencies or barcodes. Like Japan uses barcodes to pay. In Europe is SEPA, so it's not even ACH debits. It's called SEPA, where they do the auto debit out of the account every month. And then we're just realizing, again, if that was the number one, if we're able to facilitate like payment processing of different currencies in different ways and manners, all through Kindred, it's recorded, it emails them an invoice, it sends them an email before the rent's due, it attaches the late fee if there's late fees. If that chunk of payment processing, rent collection is processed through our platform, like that's the biggest pain right now for every single operator. That's their number one.
So are you focusing on certain types of operators? Let's say maybe operators that have like around 15 people in the house. Are you trying to create a solution that's really adaptable for everybody?
Every single size. It doesn't matter how big and small, but we are starting. We did know, my tech team was like, okay, this is massive when you're talking about payment processing, and every country's different. We're starting with the US and with Europe. So we're tackling those two continents first. That's the most of our waiting list. And then we can tackle some of the other countries, because each country is so different.
It is.
And
it's booming in Asia and
for sure, Asia.
Raising and it's just it's been and
the bigger, and I'll say this too, a lot of the bigger guys do have their own proprietary software that they're building only for themselves, and that's totally fine. Or there's some that are doing that, but then they're reaching out to us to do the back end to actually build. Because it's very hard to be a real estate company and a tech company. I can promise you that. Again, I'm doing both the operation and tech, and they're two different worlds. I think right now the race is to get units and get beds, and then they're like, okay, we'll deal with the tech later, is what I'm realizing. Like, okay, we'll do that later. It's like a mad race to grab real estate right now.
Yeah, and there's also different types of tech. So operators build tech not only as PMS, but often they also build it for community management or for tracking events and stuff. So there's totally it can be very complementary to use Kindred and something else.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are the within the next year, is there anything that you can reveal that's going that you're gonna launch or?
Yeah, like I said, that the biggest feature coming up is that payment processing feature, and that should be in November. And then the rest of there's parts, we build. It was such a massive build, and we're 1 year in, and it's been so much fun. But we definitely built really wide versus like going real deep on each feature. So now we're just gonna go and knock out each one we've already started building, like at different percentages. Some features are already like 80% done, some are 60. Now we just need to take each one to 100 and just roll them out as fast as we can, and then people just get comfortable using the platform. And we're really big on like user feedback. So it's like, okay guys, what do you want next? What would make your life so much easier? Like I just want, and again, as an operator myself and as talking to every person, there's no reason we can't use tech to make this more efficient and facilitate community. Like I just really love, and I know I've said it on my show a million times, but I think people are kind of scared of technology and robots or whatever. But like if you can use technology to facilitate community, that's when it really gets amazing. It's so cool.
Yeah, talking about tech. Well, you got accepted through Techstars program to Arcadis.
Arcadis City of 2030. So what are smart cities going to look like in the year 2030? And I love futurism. I love thinking of the future. So we were in Amsterdam for March, April, and May of this year for Techstars program.
Yeah, we're actually right now at WeWork and gonna have like an Arcadis event here.
Yes, so we're in Hollywood and we're at WeWork. And actually WeWork is such a great model. I know everybody's bashing them on their IPO right now. I feel so bad. I've been such a fan since day one, so I'm trying not to read this bad press because they're giving them such a hard time. But just like co-working evolved in the last 10 years. The demographic here even evolved. You see all ages coming in through the doors now at WeWorks, and corporate, like a lot of big corporates are coming in to co-work. And when 10 years ago, no way, you would have never ever thought that like an Apple employee could be hanging out with like, IBM or like Microsoft, like in a co-working space. And I think co-living is going to evolve to the same manner, right?
So do you think co-living is going to evolve into a more inclusive or more niche down?
I think more inclusive down the road, yeah. And then you'll have your niche home concepts too that are super niche and like very specific.
Totally.
Yeah.
Is there, how can people support you at this point?
Oh gosh, everybody's super supportive already. I mean, my show has been, like I said, so much fun doing it. And I have to confess, I've never even said this. The first 8 months of the show, and again, was on YouTube. It's on YouTube, and it was originally in just YouTube and like iTunes. I didn't hear a peep. I'm like, I don't even know if people were watching this, listening. I don't even know. Like, I never heard anything. I never saw comments. Nobody ever said, hey, I listened to your show. After 8 whole months of a weekly show. And then like all of a sudden, like overnight, like now daily, I get like messages or comments, or I bump into people that if I speak at a conference, people run up to me and say, Christine, I love your show. So that's been really cool, the last few months to say, oh my God, people are actually like getting something out of it. And again, that's why I do it. It's a passion project. I want to make sure that, co-living becomes mainstream, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it mainstream. Because there's no doubt in my mind that this is it's not a fad. And everybody was saying that last year. I don't hear that as much now, but yeah, I was like, I'm telling you right now, this is not a fad. Like co-working is not a fad, right? 10 years later, and they're like, well, yeah, you're right. I'm like, well, this is following that same path.
Yeah. And then your co-living journey, like you're getting, you're not getting more into it, like you're already so into it. But is there like a certain focus that you're having right now, something that you're exploring in knowledge? Like for example, for me, I read the number one question right now I'm having is like, what is the right cluster size? It's the
cluster size of people. Interesting.
Like, is it like 5? Is it 8 to 12? Is it 30 people? And like if yes, do you have house leaders? Like how do you create those clusters and intimacy? So this is the one question I'm currently exploring. Is there something that you're currently asking yourself?
I love that question, and I don't get it asked enough. So you're right, because with the 300-person community, what happens is then there's niche, then they niche down to smaller sub communities inside a big community. Even ours is 6 people, and we're super close. We're like brothers and sisters, and we know everything about each person. And we do monthly, weekly meetings every Monday. So I got back just in time for last night's, and it was Labor Day, and we were all there at 7 p.m. to do our weekly mastermind. And you go around and you say your burning issue, whether it's business or personal, and we dive in and we'll call you out if you're we'll just be like, look, this is what you need to do, and you haven't done it. and our goals are on the right board. And we do quarterly retreats where we really dive in and we write on a card, and this is super unique, and again, this is our house, is things that are great about you. It's a 3x5 card. You spend 10 minutes, we go 10 minutes on each person, and you write everything that they're just amazing about. And then the back of the card is what areas you can improve. Imagine the people that live with you alongside of you, and they see things that you're maybe not conscious of, and they're gonna, in a very politely way. And again, we were talking before we even did the interview, like communication is key. Like we have an amazing, like our group is like high EQ, like emotional intelligence, incredible communicators. So I don't know if every house can pull this off. You have to be very mature and write things in a loving way. But and it all was. And I have all my cards. Like I'm gonna keep them forever. We do them each quarter. And like, wow, they're right. They're right. You see the same thing on 3 cards. You're like, okay, maybe I need to improve on this, And that's really, you go deep when it's just 6 people because you know them so deeply. Burning Man with a camp of 50 people in one camp, and I've maybe got to know on a decent level maybe 20 of them, because over 20 is hard. It's hard to get. So that's interesting. You're right. So each one's going to be different based on size of home, how many people are there, the demographic. Are they splitting off? Are they building little cliques separately?
Like micro, for example, this is one model urban campus in Spain, which I really like, because they have people living in units of 5 people, and then you have 15 people that share common spaces, and then you have the entire building of 70 that share those huge common spaces. So you have micro, mini, and macro communities
in one big community.
In one building. And then they have this whole pairing and buddy system, and so it's and I walked in and people all they knew each other, and it's very rare because usually beyond 30, it's really hard to see great intimacy. So. Oh,
that's cool. Are there any other concepts that you thought were really nailing the whole building? Because again, this is I'm always solving for loneliness. I think if I zoom out, okay, Christine, why are you so passionate about co-living? I think at the root, it's loneliness is such an epidemic. We already know that. And how do you solve for that? Well, like housing, I know when I'm co-living, I'm so much more happier, I'm more active. Because I was in Europe I was living alone for the first time in a long time, and I was like, oh, this will be great, I'll have a break. At the student hotel, you have your own home, your own unit, and then you can join downstairs. But if you're always in your unit, you're never meeting anybody. And coming back to San Diego, I was like, wow, this is what I miss. I miss this feedback. Nobody was giving me feedback for the last 5 months. Yeah, so the loneliness thing, I think, is really solving for that, is at my core. And I know that this is the best way to do it. So have you seen other communities where they've done it really well and everybody's integrated?
Yes, and usually the clusters, the people, is around 8 to 12 or 8 to 15 is what I've seen can work really well. 8 to 12 actually.
That makes sense.
But it's usually the ones that work best were actually kind of more the communes. For example, I just came from the south, so I got very inspired by the communes there, which are more self-organized and give themselves time to integrate new people, so they don't have this business pressure also of filling rooms, and it's not optimized for profit. So it's a bit different, but there's certain spaces that try to bring in this self-organization model into co-living. So for example, Open Door, they open up, they see themselves as a business to enable the culture, but not to create it. So they let the people create their own systems, their own community meetings, their own things, and Open Door is there to sustain themselves with the housing and the materials and guiding them into this journey.
Yes, I love that. And again, with our house too, and I think this is an incredible model with our house, is each person has a chair. So there might be I'm the events chair, and then one person is the food chair, so they're handling the chef, and so each person of the 6 of us, we each manage one big component of the house, and then so there's no then it's just shared, and then there's no somebody's not profiting off the model. It's self-contained and self-ran. And I really like that. I really like that model. I think it works the best because we're all responsible for everything.
Okay, and that touches upon one last thing I would like to mention, which is responsibility. The spaces that work best when tenants or residents feel like they have a certain level of responsibility of ownership of the space. When they feel like they can contribute, or they want to contribute because they're part of something. So you can give this feeling of this feeling of ownership in different ways. right? Like through like having a food budget that people decide upon, or through like community gatherings where people collectively decide on like how to implement solutions. And then people on the flip side, they tend to stand longer. On the good side, they tend to stand longer because they're involved. They take care of the space, and the operator can even like kind of withdraw from operations. For example, at Urban Campus now it's the community itself that runs the community assemblies, and the operators don't do it anymore. So I'm really curious, is there any other space, like in yours, you guys are super responsible size, having like a lead of like a subjects that you're tackling. Is there any other space that inspired you in that direction?
There's not, at the top of my head, Canine Tech Farm where are they at? They're in Sweden, or where are they at? I think
in Sweden.
Yeah, and that's where the founders of the, something happened, they had to take off, and then there's like 70 residents, and then they were like stepped up and took it over. They're like, well, we don't want to move, we'll just take over, so it's self-ran. That's really cool. So again, people have different duties, and like the place keeps on running, and I thought that was really unique because they stepped into it. But yeah, that's a great way, and I think having purpose is amazing. So when you're giving people specific roles in your community, then they feel like they have another purpose, right? Like, I'm part of this community, like I'm building, I'm helping it function. So I think more and more people should dive into that side of things. Versus it just being an operator providing everything for them. And again, there's nothing wrong with that either, because some people need that. They're super busy working and they don't have time for any volunteering of any sorts. So I just need to find each unique way of doing this.
Totally. Like co-living has so many different needs that it can solve, right? From affordable housing, like here, for example, with upstarts where people can live for like less than $1,000 in Los Angeles, to belonging, right? Again, fighting against loneliness.
Yes.
And growth.
And living in cool cities.
So we're having it's really cool, because I think we have a couple of years ahead where a lot of things will change. What is the best way for people to follow you in your journey?
Yeah, just obviously they can subscribe here on YouTube, if we're on YouTube, or whichever way you're listening. We're on Spotify now, we're on SoundCloud, the show. Like, I don't know how people want to listen to us, so we put it on every platform there is. It's every Wednesday. I'm great on LinkedIn. That's probably the platform that's the easiest. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, happy to help anytime. And then, people can easily find me online. I'm on there all the time. And Gui, just like, I want to personally thank you. It's like awesome seeing you like also be this amazing thought leader around the world, and just so passionate. Like, I can't wait for your book, his book, The Art of Co-Living. Finally, another book on Amazon, because I search sometimes.
Especially like one, right?
That's so crazy. And that was a year ago. I'm always like, oh, someone's gonna write one any day, and I had to hurry and do mine like in 3 months. And then it's a year later, I'm like, nobody's done one yet. So I can't wait for yours, because I'm sure there's amazing stories you're going to share in there. And it's just always fun. Like, when people talk to me, they're always like, oh, do you know Gui? Or like vice versa. I'm like, yeah, no, for sure. Like, I think we're the two most passionate.
Yeah, I think that's a proof. We do know.
That we're here in person together finally, like in real life. And it's cool. Yeah, it's nice having you here out here in California now to visit. And you're gonna visit our house in San Diego.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna go next week.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys. And I'll see you next week. Do you know already who's gonna show up next week on the show? Or is it still secret?
And it's still secret, I think.
All right. Well, let's keep it this way.
Yes, no hints for next week. I think I know who it is actually. Yeah, because sometimes we pre-record a couple weeks out. But yeah, we've had some really neat ones lately on, just from different aspects of, I love bringing on someone's specialty is architecture, like they're coming from the consulting background of co-living, or they're an actual operator. And again, we like to mix it up and keep it fresh and have people from around the world on. So of course, reach out if you haven't been on my show yet, just like reach out. I know we're filming a whole bunch more, a whole section of them this month again. So
cool.
So thank you, and thanks for everybody. Thanks for all your likes and your comments. I read them all. I always appreciate that. Hopefully this is helpful if you're thinking about getting co-living, or if you're already in it.
See you soon.
Okay. Perfect. That was great. That was fun. Thank you so much for checking out today's episode. If you want to learn more about co-living, you could check out my book on Amazon, The Coliving Code. And of course, if you're looking for the perfect software to power your co-living concept, check out Kindred.io, Kndrd.io. Thanks. And a quick thank you to SPX Agency for all of the graphics, animation, and design on our YouTube channel.